All right, I'm Jay Sanders. I'm Director of IT for Centene, a company that you guys have probably never heard of, but is just massive and has grown like crazy here in the US. I think I started 7 years ago. I think we're like 25,000 employees or something like that. We're up to like 80,000 now. 1 in 15 Americans uses our insurance today. We do mostly Medicaid and Medicare across the US. We've got some form of insurance plan in pretty much every single state in the US. And we also cover everything for the military. So if you've ever been, U.S. Marines or Navy or whatever, you've probably heard of TRICARE. TRICARE is your insurance. We manage TRICARE too. So we have to go through all the annoying pain in the butt stuff of getting NAC security clearances and all that just to manage your data on our servers. It's a good time. I've got a group of about 45 in my group today. We've got 5 different teams. We've got a DevOps team. I manage all the Windows servers for the company. We got somewhere around 10,000 servers, I think, right now across the US, pretty decent footprint. We've got a DevOps team with a great guy, one of my managers here, Ken King, who's in the crowd today. We do a lot of ServiceNow development to make that automation work, and I'll talk about that here today too. So we've got a pretty big group. We've learned a lot of stuff in the last couple of years, and I'm here to share as much of that as I can in 45 minutes with you guys with one objective, really. I'm not here because I'm a smart guy. I'm really not. I didn't even finish college. Most of the people here in the room are a hell of a lot smarter than I am. I'm here to share a lot of the lessons I've learned, a lot of the failures I've made with you guys in hopes that some of it helps you a little bit. I realized last year that where I got to the point where I'm at today, I started getting really proud of it, really excited, as a lot of us do as you climb that ladder. I made it, big job, right? And I realized as I was thinking through it, I didn't really do anything to get there. I got there because everyone else helped me and handed me knowledge, right? Most of us are in the place we are because other people took the time to teach us. So if you come to that realization and you realize that really you're where you're at because everyone else helped, you got to get to a point with yourself where you feel comfortable that you've earned that help, right? Otherwise, you kind of get into that stage where you're kind of self-entitled, right? I made it on my own when you really didn't. So my objective here is to earn that knowledge that was given to me from other people that took time by sharing it with you. And hopefully you guys, kind of carry some of that and take that on and pass that along to people you know as well. That's the hopes. All right. I've also got with me today Anurag from Bay Area, Demi Larkin. These two are awesome partners of ours with Red Hat. They've done a great job of running through value creation within our team. We're investing a ton of money right now in DevOps and automation, Ansible, and we're trying to make sure that what we're spending money on actually gets something back. I know it's weird. It's a weird idea to think that, hey, I actually got to show I've made some money, but every time I go back to my bosses and say, hey, I need a couple $1 million this year to do some more work, they want to see what they gave me already actually made some money, so it's important to us. And if I can show that I've got a good return on what we've built, I get more projects and more funding, so it's super critical. So this team, if you guys haven't worked with them yet, I highly suggest some conversations with them. They are fantastic at showing you in your projects within your company how much you're actually making on that. And it's really, really important. So we're going to talk to you guys today as well. All right, let's dig in. So, nope, wrong way. There we go.
We love that song.
I will get this, I promise. All right, so some of the stuff we're going to cover in today's session. I'm going to share the story at Centene, how we got to where we're at. I'm going to talk about DevOps, kind of what it means to me. We're going to have Demi and Anurag share the story behind business value creation, hugely important. And then I'm going to get into some of the things that you guys haven't really been hearing from a whole lot of people, I don't think. Maybe you have. More of the critical things about how to build a team that's actually going to go out and create change in your company. We're not going to talk a whole lot about technology. I'll give you a little bit of that because our team does a whole lot of that with DevOps. But the objective there is to teach you guys what it takes to build a team and build yourself up as a leader that can actually create change in a company. It's way different than what most people think. Most of us think if we go out and buy the right software, we spend a lot of money on whatever that automation tool is, we can go out and master the world, and then you send your teams out and they just get destroyed and decimated. They just get destroyed like meat to sharks, and you don't know why. And I'm going to talk about why that is. Some of the psychology behind your teams, building the right people with integrity. We're going to dig into a lot of that today. Before I kick off, though, a couple icebreakers. So I'm a big bourbon guy. Anybody here do bourbon? Oh, we got a lot of bourbon drinkers. All right, favorite bourbons. Let me hear one. Basil Hayden. All right. Who's that? Basil Hayden, okay. Which one? Oh, I haven't had that one. Blanton's? Yeah, Blanton's popular. Everybody wants the Blanton's. Okay, I know who you're talking about. I forgot his name. Yeah, good call. Yeah, Blanton's. Everybody wants the Blanton's, man. And if you want it, it's a $60 bottle. You got to pay $200 or $300 for somebody to get a hold of it. And frankly, when I tried it, it was just mediocre. Some of my favorite bourbons are like cheap stuff that you find everywhere that aren't really popular because I don't like to pay $800 for a $100 bottle, but I've got like 80 different bottles at the house. I made the mistake of counting up my bottles last year and roughly what I had invested in there. I'm like, do I need to change my insurance policy yet? And I made the mistake of adding it up because I wrote it out, set it down, and my wife found it. Oh, she was not happy. She had not realized how much I'd spent on bourbon. It was not a good day. So I've been tuning it down a little bit on the bourbon bottles. All right, cool. Any other big ones? Gins, vodkas? I know I sound like a drunk up here. You start working hard, you need some way to calm down. Bourbon's my calm down. All right. Okay, how many leaders do we have in the group today? How many is in a leadership role? A couple of you? Okay. Okay. All right, cool. Director level? A couple of you? VP level? Yeah? All right, cool. You guys are my prime suspects today, just so you know. I'm going to pick on you a lot. I'm going to hit you with a lot of stuff. And hopefully you've already heard it. If not, ask questions. I'm going to hear as much as I can. I'm here to hand off as much as I can to you guys, hopefully in a way that helps. Okay, let's see. What am I missing here? I think we're ready to dig in.
We have some swag as well.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's right there behind you.
So do you want me to just throw it at people?
Yeah, participation. Let's go.
They need to earn it. They need to earn the knowledge.
I'm gonna let you throw it at people because I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm gonna bing somebody and it'll be an insurance thing. I just know it. Thanks, Anark. Yeah, we do. So Red Hat made some M&Ms with taglines on them, so you guys get a little sugar while we're here too. Nothing wrong with a little sugar. Okay, that said, let's dig in. So our story. We started about a year and a half or two ago. Well, we started about 3 or 4 years ago into DevOps with our DevOps team, and we learned a lot in that space. We learned that when we have guys doing automation, they have to be doing only automation before they are ever building anything great. At first, we tried having them split up, doing support, building servers, supporting servers, and doing DevOps stuff, and they just weren't getting anything done. So we had to separate them and give them just full reins of this is all you do every day. You work at agile sprints, you build stuff, right? And then we started getting some speed. When we did that, our DevOps team, as we grew from like 10 people to 45 people through acquisitions, our DevOps team is the reason why we got so good and so fast at keeping up with all the change in our company. In a company like Centene, where they're buying businesses left and right, the change will wipe you out really fast. So most teams are on fire all the time. They're trying to keep up. Our DevOps team, after some time, got all of the major problems that were slowing us down solved, so we were a really functional team within about a year. Most of the teams in Centene were still battling with this for years. Very dysfunctional. They couldn't handle all the work coming at them. They didn't organize all the different companies and domains. We had 51 domains, I think, with our servers. That's a ton. If you have to go out and do a security policy change for a GPO, you got to do that 51 times. It sucks. So we put a lot of time into DevOps, and it fruited very well, and our team became one of the top teams. We've got 180 teams right now in my CTO group, 180. And we're right up there in the top 3 most performing teams. And a lot of it is because we put a lot of time into this. So when we got our backyard clean and everything was working smooth, we wanted to go out and help other teams at Centene that were still on fire, still not keeping up. We wanted to build a program that could train those teams what we learned, pass on that knowledge, help uptick those skill sets, get them better at what they're doing. And the only way we could do that was with a good project that would get us ahead and give us a way to teach them. And so we went after server builds. Classic company problem, right? Our company was spending upwards of 8 to 12 months building servers. If you had a new application come in, and you're deploying, Dynatrace, or you're deploying Splunk, and you need 20 or 30 servers to do it, you would start through an application process with the company, fill out a bunch of stuff, all kinds of paperwork, and then you'd go through the rigmarole. You'd work with the server teams, the middleware teams, and you'd work with the security teams, and you'd get your load balancers set up. There was all these different groups you had to work with. We had about 20 or 30 teams in some way or another, SQL teams, Oracle teams. Everybody is segregated. We had all these different teams that had some piece of that build process. And for the most part, they were using automation to do it. They were great at their own technology space. But what was happening was all of those teams would get a ticket to do their work. And when you take one server through 15 different ticket queues, those ticket queues are 7 days to 15 days. We had stuff sitting out there for 9 months, a ticket to create a backup agent on a server for 9 months. They just forgot about it. Nobody was keeping track. So we'd finally have a team come back and go, guys, we haven't had a server in a year. What is going on? And we'd look through and somebody missed a ticket. So even though the work, you install Apache on a server, what does it take, 5 minutes? 5 minutes worth of work. It'd sit there for 2 weeks in a queue, waiting for somebody to do that 5 minutes worth of work. And when we multiplied that by 1,500 applications a year, and what were we doing? I think somewhere around 2,000, 2,500 servers a year. It is a crap ton of waste. We had so much time lost just sitting there in queues. So we had to come up with a way to do this. What's a better way? We also had all these different technologies everybody's using. Everybody's got their own tools. If we do automation, their automation for Tenable is different than the other automation for CyberArk, different than the other automation for whatever our backup clients were. Everybody did something different. So we had to build a strategy around this. We wanted teams to automate with a similar approach, even though they had all these different technology stacks. We needed like one process that could touch all of those things and build all those things together. And we wanted to teach teams. We wanted to teach them infrastructure as code and DevOps and GitLab and all the things that we're doing that are making things fast. And at the end, that most important part was we had to stop losing time on ITSM queues. Stuff just sitting there, right? Questions so far? Making sense? Picking up what I'm putting down? Smelling what I'm stepping in? All right. Okay, so we came up with a simple approach. I say simple, but it was long and a lot of work to build. So coming through ServiceNow, our company uses ServiceNow. Everything is in ServiceNow. Our requests are in ServiceNow. Our approval gates are in ServiceNow. ServiceNow knows who your manager is and your director is and your VP is, your assignment groups. We have all the metrics. Everything we need in ServiceNow is built to do exactly what we wanted to do. We just needed to bring all the technologies in there so that ServiceNow could kick them off and start that automation, right? So the way we did that, we didn't want to take every single technology in the company and integrate plugins into ServiceNow. That would be a management nightmare. So what we did instead was we started with just Ansible. We integrated Ansible into ServiceNow. Our ServiceNow team is inundated with work. They can't keep up with anything. They've got a year-long backlog. And they said, if you can't wait a year, then we need you to go out and get an SOW, get some funding, and you can hire somebody to do this ServiceNow work so that we don't have to. You don't have to wait a year. And we did that once or twice. But that's difficult, going out and chasing money. So I worked really hard with the leadership of that team to let us hire our own ServiceNow developers. Man, was that a trick. Hiring people to do things on your stack that work on a different team, that takes a lot of trust. And if you don't have a lot of trust with groups like that, they are not talking to you. You're gonna have to go off and figure that out. So that I'll penny back to that here later on and the importance of that. And then lately we've added Terraform. Well, we're adding Terraform. I don't want to talk too far ahead. That's when Ken gets mad at me because I start making promises he can't deliver. All right. Fair, awesome. We're excited to get Terraform in the mix too for all of our cloud stuff. All right, so what this gave us was one solution that everyone could use. If teams wanted to build an Ansible, we'd teach them how. You could do all your automation there and it'd do just about anything, at least in our company, that you need. Or if you've already got a ton of automation, like our network team did, like our Tanium team did, VMware, they've all got their own automation platforms. You could just use Ansible as your middleman, and we'll wrap it around your technology. Now we have a solution that everybody can use for automation, where we can literally create workflows in ServiceNow that just one by one, they hit every single team, they spit that ticket out, that ticket starts a play in Ansible, Ansible does the job, closes the ticket, gives the customer what they need, IP addresses, host names, access, you name it. So at this point, we had something everyone could use, and I went to selling. Man, can I sell. I can sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. And that's what it took. It took going out there and selling. And it took building partnerships. And it took, getting people on the same page with us that wanted to do these things. All right. The teams that we used. So we built a new team. We call them the Apex team. Tech systems was a huge piece of this. Shameless plug, respect owed where it's due. Tech systems was a huge impact for us. I don't know if you guys work with them today. If you don't and you're looking at them, I can't give them enough props. They are the biggest reason why all this worked. And we hit a lot of snags, and they were there to help us fix every one of them. So shameless plug, Tech Systems did a great job with us. So what we did was we built a team that could go out and work with 3 teams at the same time. They were doing training, teaching them DevOps, teaching them infrastructure as a code, and they were helping them to build that one use case for automation for server deployment. So that at the end of this, they knew how to integrate catalog items to ServiceNow, they knew how to use Ansible, they knew how to wrap it around whatever technology they're using, and hopefully, they now own what we built, and they support what we built, and we walk away and we build more things without having to come back and continually support teams with things that they have. Some of them did great at that, some of them struggled with that. We helped them through it. But this is how we assembled everybody. We had 6 engineers. These were DevOps engineers. We spent a lot of time selecting those. We replaced a lot of those because a lot of people are not very honest in their interview process, and some of them make them onto your team and don't know what the hell they're doing. So we always had some of that, right? That's part of it. We had a couple of architects, ServiceNow architects, DevOps architects. We had a service delivery manager. He was kind of like the pseudo manager of the team, made sure the team kept running. Some ServiceNow developers, then we had a Scrum Master dedicated to it, and then a project lead. So what they're doing essentially is they're working in 2-week sprints using Agile methodology, just like everybody does today, and they're doing product delivery. So each one of these teams, they sit with those teams for a couple of weeks, figured out, hey, what are we going to build? How long is it going to take? They started the build process. That team joined our team in a Scrum group, and every 2 weeks they're delivering to get there. They even had backlog items for training and getting into how to learn Ansible and how to learn GitLab and all that stuff. So that's how we built that team up. Questions so far? I know I'm going fast on you guys. All right, so when we met with those teams, we would be 2 months, 6 months, depends on what we got to build. We would help them by teaching them. So these are a lot of the methodologies we'd teach them. A lot of times we'd put them through, I hit the wrong button, A Cloud Guru. I don't know if any of you use that. It's an awesome online resource for learning. Interactive labs, you can spin up servers in AWS and Azure, let you install things and build out Ansible and get your hands in there while you're doing the training. So a lot of teams, before we engaged with them to build things and learn things, we'd have them do some pre-training so that whenever the guys got there and they were talking their stuff, everyone's eyes didn't just glaze over. I'm lost. So we'd start with that. We'd teach them the latest in DevOps and IAC, and then we'd help them support what we built, hand off documentation. The teams in the beginning were just going really fast. Our group was. They were building all the development, all the tools, and the team that we're supposed to be training at the end of it was like, I have no idea what any of this is. So we had to slow them down, and I made a rule, you guys can only build half of this. 50% is our team, 50% is the customer team. Make sure they know what the heck this stuff is at the end of it, because we cannot own and support everything, and that's a pretty important part. How am I doing on time so far?
You're fine.
Good? Okay. All right. DevOps. How many are here from a DevOps team or doing DevOps stuff? Nice.
We've got some M&Ms to hand out,
Hit it.
so we'll start passing them around.
Yeah, hit it. That's a lot more than I thought.
Everybody who raised hands gets M&Ms.
Go ahead, Jay. Keep going.
Of those on DevOps teams, how many of you have other customers you're doing DevOps and automation for? That's a pretty good amount. So you guys are going to relate to a lot of stuff we touch on here today. All right, so any person you ask doing DevOps, any company you ask doing DevOps, what does DevOps mean? You're going to get a different answer. I think you've probably heard this from like 10 people. You'll have 10 different answers about what the hell DevOps is, right? Everybody's got their own reasons for it, their own strengths and strategies. This is ours. For us, the biggest reason we started this a couple of years ago is acquiring software is super slow. In a company like mine, We're a Fortune 24 company. I think we're Fortune 26 now, somebody said. It takes forever. And our platforms are big. Like I've got 10, 11,000 servers within my group. We got to spend a couple $1 million when we buy something. It's not children's play anymore. So when I go to my leadership and I go to finance and say I need $2 or $3 million for some software, I get a lot of no's. We don't have the budget for that. And so what I'll do is I'll work on getting that approval for budget, sometimes 6, 9 months. We get one budget a year. And if I spend 6 or 9 months to get that budget approved, I don't know until the end of the year if I'm going to get it or not. And at the end of the year, if it's no, I just wasted 6 or 9 months hoping for something that I can't have, and my team now can't innovate stuff. They have nothing that they need to make our backyard better. So why would I do that all the time? It'd be insane. That means my team is always behind. We never have the stuff we want because we're stopped by finance, right? So we needed a better way to handle new stuff we needed. And the best way I could find is build it ourselves. If we're going to finance every year, there's no guarantee they're going to give me anything. In our case, Ansible was a good example. We needed Ansible for 10,000 servers a year and a half or two ago. I waited 6 or 9 months for finance to say, nope, no money. And so the year after that, no Ansible. So all of the automation we had to build, sorry, I'm killing my mic here. All the automation we had to build, we were doing in PowerShell and SCCM and all these, inferior products that really sucked. Like it sucked. We weren't getting anywhere. And it wasn't until the next year that I tried again. And I really, really tried this time. And we got the approval to spend some money on all the Windows devices or all the Windows servers we got. And we got Ansible put in. The reason why I chose Ansible is because now I've got a tool that I don't have to go out and buy more tools for. Like I can train my team, or I don't train them, but our team can be trained on how to use Ansible to build all my products now. Same thing with Terraform, right? You can start building and developing anything you want, anything your heart's desire, because it fits all of the things that you need to build. And so now I don't have to wait 6 or 9 months to get a maybe yes or no from finance. All I have to do is make sure that my team is working on that. That's the most critical thing. Build me something to fix patching. Build me something to go out and automate the load balancers getting created, all the VIPs, whatever we need. It's just a priority for them. They build it. And the other cool thing is when you buy software, usually it doesn't meet 100% of your needs because you have really complicated processes in your company. And no software is made to manage your processes. So especially at our size, we have the worst processes. They get really deep and really complicated. And if software has to figure that out, it usually fails. Even ServiceNow, the most flexible application I've ever seen, it runs into a lot of problems trying to support our processes. So when we build them, typically they meet 100% of what we need. So that's what DevOps is for us. And that's why it helped us so much. We didn't have to go buy stuff all the time. If you see any popular technology right now in the world, and it's made news, it's been talked about online, we probably bought it. We own so much crap at that company, it's not even funny. We buy software just because somebody says it's a good idea, and then it sits there on the shelf and we never use it. So we're trying to get out of that game, right? Questions so far? Theories, objections? Jay, you're nuts. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right, good question. We do that a lot. Okay, so the question is, as you're working with other teams doing automation, how do you help them with that fear that they're going to lose their job, right? Yeah. Okay, so we get that a lot. And typically they're not saying it. We'll meet with those teams. We're doing planning. We're going through, hey, we're going to do all this cool stuff for you. I'm out there doing my sales mini thing. Everything's going to be awesome. You guys are going to love it. And there's like 1 or 2 naysayers that are like, oh, this is a terrible idea. And it's just like they just farted in the room. Like everybody stops. The excitement stops. And they're doing it because, they're trying to shoot down the idea. They're scared. They're scared of us coming and automating stuff, right? So you'll know the guys that are scared or the girls that are scared just because they're the ones that are combative in every meeting. You could say the coolest stuff, and they're like, that's a terrible idea because of reasons. And everyone's like, oh, maybe it is. And then you've got to rile the whole team in. So we get that a lot. And a lot of people are worried about it. And what they're also worried about is if they have to go learn this new thing, they're not going to get it. It's going to be difficult. And that's a real fear. We have a lot of people that struggle with this stuff. I naively thought, a couple of years ago when we started doing DevOps, I naively thought anybody can do this if we just train them. Everybody can do DevOps, right? I was wrong. Everybody can do DevOps, but not everybody wants to. Not everybody wants to sit there and write code in Ansible, and not everybody wants to, build and develop, scripts and stuff, because it's just not for everybody. So I kind of had to change my stance. A lot of people see that stuff, their eyes gloss over, and they want nothing to do with it. Most people in that space are really, really good stability people. They're the ones that make sure that documentation's followed. They're the ones that make sure that you're going through the right procedure as you're working with their team, and they're amazing at it. And they should definitely continue doing that. That's their strength. We should not be asking people to automate that are not automation people. That's not the right mindset. You'll freak people out too. Like, they will get worried. So what I typically do in that situation is, if I've got somebody that's just generally combative, or they're just fearful, maybe they're just being quiet, and they kind of share, yeah, this worries me. I don't talk about any of that in front of a group setting. That's one thing that I learned as a leader not to do. When you've got somebody that's emotional, don't touch on any of that stuff in front of the group. It's really hard. But definitely speak with that person and make sure that they feel safe about what you're doing. Answer questions, just let them talk, and just shut up and listen to them. A lot of times we don't do that. So I'll pull those people to the side, we'll have one-on-ones until they feel comfortable with what I'm doing or what my team's doing. And we've had a lot of that, and it takes a lot longer. Typically, most leaders they don't care if somebody's got a problem with what they're doing, and they don't want to spend time on getting everybody up to speed. They're coming through with a bulldozer, and you better get out of the way. And they don't get everybody bought in. And then when they start working with that team, those combative people aren't getting anything done. And they are really good at stopping your project when they don't want your project to succeed. They're great at it. So spend time with people. Definitely spend time with people that are upset or worried or have fear until the point that they're comfortable with what you're doing. And if you can't make them comfortable, it's probably because you're doing something wrong, and you need to listen to them and fix what you're doing wrong. Answer your question? A little bit? Okay. Oh, I gotcha. Spend more time with them. Listen to them. Literally one-on-one. Set up 30 minutes an hour and do it with them until they're comfortable or you're comfortable and you guys are both talking on the same page. It'll change everything, I promise. It's important that you do it. All right, other questions? Yeah.
How do you deal with upper-level management that maybe has decided on a different tool that may or may not?
That's a good point. All right, so the question is, how do you deal with upper management that has decided on another tool that's not what you want? I'll make this one quick. The simple fact is, if they're your boss, you gotta listen. That's all there is to it. You need to get good at giving them the facts and then walking away from it without feeling bad when they don't decide on what you want. And I see a lot of people fight with that, and they leave and they quit, and they're like, man, nobody's listening to me, and we're not doing the right things, and I'm out of here. Screw this place. We've got to get good at listening to our leaders, even if they're not making a decision that we like. And what will happen is, the next time your leader makes a decision and it's wrong because you gave him good advice or her good advice, and they look back and go, man, they were right the whole time, I should have listened. And you were cool about it, you weren't a butthole, you didn't give them a hard time, they're going to come back the next time, they're going to listen to you a little bit better because you're building respect with them, you're building trust with them. Yeah?
But human nature doesn't like to admit it's wrong.
That's right. It sucks.
You could be right,
Yep.
they will know you're right,
Yep.
but they will never, sometimes.
That's right. And you cannot change people. You can give advice to people, but in the end, you got to let them make their own decisions. These are topics I can talk about for hours. You guys catch me outside, we'll have long talks. I got to keep moving so I get this thing done in time. All right, moving along. Business value. I'm going to let you guys get handed over to the business value team here. Anurag is the man.
Thank
you need
you,
anything from
Jay.
me? You good?
I'm good.
All right, buddy.
All right. Thank you, Jay. That was a great story from Centene. My name is Anurag. I lead the business value team for Red Hat globally. So what Jay mentioned in this prior slide, it's getting hard and harder to secure budget approvals for the IT projects that you are gunning for. You're at Summit this week. We appreciate you taking the time to be here, and you are seeing, let's say, announcements around Lightning and OpenShift AI. Now, tomorrow, when you want to go in and get approvals, finance approvals for those technologies, it's getting harder to do that. So let me see some hands in the room. Raise your hand if you agree with the sentiment that Jay shared. It's hard and harder for you to secure approvals for those IT projects now. All right, thank you. Please put your hands down. So that's about 60, 70% of the room agrees with you, Jay. It is a challenge, right?
Yep.
And this is something that we are trying to solve for you. So imagine if in the next 10, 15 minutes, you're able to find an approach to make it a little bit easier for you to overcome that challenge. So that's what we're going to be talking to you about. Demi and I will show you examples of what we've done with Jay to make it easier for Centene to overcome that challenge. So first things first, let's unpack why it's become harder to get IT approvals. It's 3 reasons. The first reason is the macroeconomic environment we are in. It's getting hard to justify each dollar. And you need to convince your boss, and you need to convince your boss's boss, and ultimately the people who own the budget. So you need to do that well. Number 2 is because the purpose of IT is to serve your organization's greater need in terms of driving revenue, optimizing costs. If you're creating customer experience-oriented applications, for example, right? It's meant to create revenue. Now that connection between your work and your organizational objectives, it's not easy to connect. So that creates silos which are hard to join. And that bleeds into point number 3, which is if you're trying to rally people together in your organization, Simon Sinek talks about start with a why. So the why, which is the end vision on outcomes, it's hard to create that and hence rally people together. So it's a combination of these 3 factors which is making it harder to secure approvals for your IT projects. So what do we do about that? At Red Hat, we care deeply about our customers. And we saw this challenge as a trend across many different organizations. So we invested in a practice in this team called Business Value 2 years back. And the idea here is that we've assembled some of the best management consulting background in this group, and we work with some of our champions like yourself and Jay, and we help you justify those investments internally. So we'll create business cases with you and have you participate in that process so you can use that knowledge internally to secure approvals for the projects that you're passionate about.
Entirely for free.
And we do it free of charge to you. So it's not a paid service. We are not charging you for it. It's a complimentary offering from Red Hat as an investment to making you successful. So we've done this for a bunch of different customers, as I mentioned, but one of the most notable ones has been the partnership with Centene and Jay. To talk more about that, I'm going to pass it to Demi, who co-leads our team for the Central region.
All right. Thanks, that's really kind. You don't even know what I'm going to say yet, and you are clapping for me. I love that. Well, thank you. Appreciate all the participation so far, too. Okay, so I saw the poll earlier that Anurag did. Would the people sitting in the first 4 rows here just do me a favor and raise your hand quickly, nice and high? Okay. So according to research by Deloitte, that is roughly the percent of people in the room today that will have budget secured for new projects in IT this year. So earlier, and assuming by a lot of your participation in the room today, assuming a lot more of you actually want to approve budgets for really cool stuff you're trying to do in your IT teams. So, question becomes, how do you beat those staggering odds? So lucky for you, Jay agreed to let us come on stage today and talk about the story of how we supported him. And as you can tell by Jay's way of presenting and how much he grasped the story of what was happening on his teams, we met with him, and what struck me first was awesome knowledge about bourbon. And number 2 is that he had a lot of good data collected already But what he was struggling with was telling that story to the business owners. He was struggling with telling that story to executive audiences. So that's what we came in to help him with. So the visual on the screen is meant to represent that really at that base layer, IT, it's really easy for us as practitioners to talk peer-to-peer about how something we're doing, a project we're invested in, is helping. But then we need to move on to the line of business and talk about how are we delivering better for the business by doing this cool thing? Then, even further still, how are we helping secure the future for our company's broader strategic goals? So what we'll do is unpack each of those components and how we brought that story to life for Centene. Okay, first, as Jay stated at the start, IT service management at Centene was under extreme cognitive load and toil for server builds, right? Numbers-wise, 1.5 hours per ticket to complete something, right? Doesn't sound like a lot of time, but you have other things you need to do. 3,000 tickets a year on average across the teams, right? So some were more, some were a little less, but 3,000 average. So roughly across an aggregate for, on average, about almost 7,000 hours a year sunk into this one thing. And that's pretty staggering when you put it together. So after automation, what we're able to prove, right? So we collected the before and after alongside Jay here, reduced that by 80% on average across teams. Some were upwards in the 90%, so really powerful. What was also really cool is that automation could be applied to a broader subset of tickets. So whereas the teams before were just using manual processes on some and an automation to another, instead they're able to attack a broader subset. And what that does for the IT teams is, yes, less time, less toil, and as a result, more time for strategic work, and it just makes people happier. You're letting them spend time on things instead of this, on things that they're really interested and engaged in. Gets the energy up. So moving on. Now we needed to talk to the line of business about why automation made sense, right? And as Jay stated, a huge hemorrhage point for serving the business here was time and queue, right? On average, 16 days across the teams that we looked at. Some of them were up to 30 days. So imagine that blip in a project management timeline, how unhappy they would be for that. So after automation, what we were able to prove here, reducing that time in queue by 94% and a 98% faster resolution and response time. So they knew someone was working on it, right? Because you could just attack it and see the queue better. And this is essential. So Centene, like a lot of organizations in this room, they pride themselves on leading from the front. So this really showed that IT service management was ready to step up the game and serve the business. And lastly, Centene executive leadership. You can literally Google this. This is in their Investor Day relations reports, all of this. They are not shy about talking about Centene value creation. It's a whole plan the CEO put out. What they're targeting by 2024 is $700 million optimization in SG&A. That's significant, right? IT is one of those line items. Not so much optimizations in the workforce, just how do we make our IT operate better? We know our tech debt is huge. So, in order to articulate this story back, we were able to step in and lean in with Jay and his colleagues to talk about what does it look like in the future if all IT domains, be it IT ops, security compliance, app dev and DevOps, networking, all leaned into automation together. What story can we tell? We're able to show a positive ROI for those 3 years, a payback of less than a year for that investment. That's huge, one of the core requirements for Centene. And what it really showed is that, again, IT is setting Centene up well for the future, and that was critical. So weaving this story together, and I'll let Jay comment on this a little bit too. What really helped here was that Jay was able to bring the right people to the table for us, They all leaned in to build this story together. And the story we reflected really showed, I think, the cultural nuances, the real problems that they were experiencing. You know, I think from your experience, you said it was invaluable, and we're continuing to build on that as well.
Absolutely.
So I'll let you come back on stage and
Cool.
wrap us up here.
Thank you, Demi. That team is awesome, I swear. They've done so much cool stuff for us, and like I have to give them another shameless plug. These graphics are all them. They're amazing. I didn't build any of this. Like, it looks awesome.
Greg has a question.
Greg.
Curious, when you're working with Demi, you're trying to assemble an ROI.
Yep.
Were there any parameters that you just didn't think about that turned out to be a huge contributor?
Oh, tons, yeah. Okay, yeah, so I'll talk about that real quick. So we were looking at, what are we actually making on the automation we've built? And we were just looking at just the one thing. We spent this many millions, and here's how much time we're saving. Oh, that doesn't look good at all. I think we've wasted some money. And Demi and the team came in and showed us, okay, but you're not thinking about the business that's now sped up with all those builds that are going faster. You're not thinking about all the future projects the teams are doing with automation and how much money that's going to save. And you're not even thinking about the next 3 years. So look what happens when we add that 3-year mark. You may have only made like 2 million in savings in year 1, but year 2, that's like 15 or 20 million. And year 3, that's like 40 and 50 and 80 million. And it starts to really build. And what it taught us was there's a whole side of automation that we totally forgot about we're not driving against. The growth of every team that's learned this and is using this and is now going back and automating stuff more than they would have before we taught them. There's a ton of ROI in that we hadn't even considered. So what we found out when we first did this was in the first year, we spent millions on SOWs and labor, and we built this cool team, and we bought all the software, tons of money. And we're like, all right, now that we're done, how much have we saved? And we blew a lot of money. So the first thing I thought was, oh my God, my boss is going to fire me. We spent so much money, and I'm not seeing any of it back. But what I realized was I don't see that until all those teams continue to build things after. And if I don't help them to continue to build things after, then I don't get an ROI. So now that we've done the big job, my next job, it's not done yet, my next job is to start incentivizing and exciting people about building new stuff in their teams, about building the next automation things. So they continue to do that, and that growth happens, and then we start to see that ROI. Had I not worked with this team, I would have never known that. We'd have just called it done, called it quits, we did, got our project finished, and we'd have gone on about our lives, and we'd have never made anything. All right, let me check time here real quick, because I know oh man, we're almost done right now.
There's a question in the front row.
Okay. I'm going to skip some of the other stuff that I had coming up. It's important stuff. Is there a way for them to...
Go to the last slide, I think.
Sure.
It will help you.
Yeah. So building teams is a big piece of this. We'll share this out. Can we share this later?
Yeah.
So everybody can get access to it? There was a lot of stuff that I wanted to touch on, but we're not going to have a chance to today about building teams. I want you guys to have access to that later. If you have time, catch me in the hallway out here. I'd be happy to share it. A lot of this is how we're building teams on integrity, humility, how we're teaching teams to be built on things more than technology. And it's the most important part about teams today, and it's the most important part of how we built our teams to be successful, is we got out of the game of hiring people good at technology, and we got into the game of building better humility, better self-awareness, more of the psychology side of building out teams. It's hugely important to us. But we'll share these out so you guys can get a little bit of it. What are you thinking for last slide?
Just maybe last slide, because we have our QR code. Want to share it out, right?
Okay, I've got like 1 minute. Final thoughts and questions?
Jay, can you toggle to the next?
That a task takes an hour and a half. How do you quantify that?
We do that through going through the logs in ServiceNow and how many tasks were stuck out there and how long it took to close. All right, go ahead.
You kind of piggyback on that. It's just ServiceNow, what you've done for analytics to determine, of the groups you're helping to automate, how many of their users are actually adopting and utilizing it. The challenge I find is I might have one team that's really great about picking up automation for build, and then the other team just wants to pound it out on CLI.
Yeah, so the question is how do we track if teams are using the automation, right? ServiceNow is definitely how we do that. We can see through the ticket systems in ServiceNow for any assignment group how long those tickets take to complete, how long they're when we automate, how long they take now. We can do our side-by-side metrics on that. Say again? Yeah. Yeah, come on up. So real quick before we wrap up, man, I wish we had more time. I'm already a minute over. If you guys don't mind, I'm gonna get a shot. If you guys enjoyed this, hold up your hands. I'm gonna get a shot with my team here so we can kind of have a good memory of it. You guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, get in there. That zoomed out as it gets. There you go.
Thank you,
Guys, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Catch me outside if you have questions.